Be intentional about the life that you want to build. And then do the work. How is it going, ladies and gentlemen? This is Sean Barnes. I want to welcome you back to the Way of the Wolf. Okay, so I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day who's been a listener of the show for quite some time, and he shared some feedback with me that resonated, and I realized he is right. The majority of the content that I talk about and things that I cover on the show are really all about leading at higher levels in an organization. And I think part of the reason that I've been doing that is just that's what my last decade has been spent doing, just kind of progressing and growing and leading larger teams and more teams and coaching other executives that have large teams that they're working with. And so I have kind of neglected to cover the grind that it took over the preceding decade for me to get into more of a senior leadership role. And even for all of you that have listened to my story, everything kind of starts from 5 to 10 years ago. And so I want to take an opportunity today to talk through the grinding that I spent for the first decade out of school. I haven't really gone into this in that much depth before because, quite frankly, it wasn't very exciting. It was boring and monotonous. And while there are some exciting things that did occur occasionally, and I geeked out on the technology because that's pretty much what I was focused on, there wasn't a lot of excitement. It was just doing the work. So I want to talk through a little bit of that story. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but whenever I talk through everything, you'll get a better sense of what I have been doing for the past 2 decades. And then I'm going to share some of the lessons that I've learned and why it is so powerful for me to be able to look back on all of that time that I spent. Okay. So I went to college, went to a technology school, got a couple of associate's degrees. Immediately after that, went to Sam Houston, tried to focus on getting a computer science degree. It was beyond boring. I just couldn't. Sitting in the big auditoriums with the professor doing stuff on a whiteboard, oh my God. Pure misery. And so I ended up getting a full-time job, started focusing on trying to figure out how to pay my bills and start progressing in my career. And I had always had part-time jobs. My first job was for a small PC repair shop in Conroe. It was called Edutech Computers. This was before Dell was as big as it is today. And the companies, for the most part, their entire model was building 50, 60, 100 computers at a time for different school districts. So we would get all these computer components that would come in, and I would just sit in the back, build a computer, build a computer, build a computer, build a computer. It was like an assembly line, just boring as can be. But that was my first foray into an actual job doing computer-related stuff. And then spent a little bit of time selling computers at Best Buy, selling and installing car audio equipment, things like this. Now, this was all in high school and college timeframe. Out of college, I got a job as a help desk technician at a company called Woodforest National Bank. I was in that role for 6 to 9 months or so, really driven, trying to figure out how can I close more tickets than anybody else on the team, kind of that competitive nature coming out in me. And ended up working out fairly well for me. I was offered an opportunity to go live in North Carolina and Virginia for a year, setting up computer equipment, opening up branches, things like that. I got to do a little bit of stuff with the switches and firewalls, got to work with some of the systems engineers, here in the Woodlands while I was setting up those branches. So it was good experience, but living out of a hotel for a year straight, and multiple hotels, not eating healthy, it took its toll on me. And in hindsight, when I started working at the bank, my hourly pay was $10 an hour. Woohoo. Yeah. And whenever I was offered this promotion to go to North Carolina for a year, they gave me a 50-cent an hour raise. I tried to negotiate a little bit more, thinking I'm picking up my life and moving to an entirely different state for 50 cents an hour. And if I'm being completely honest and transparent, I wasn't in the greatest headspace. Had just gotten out of a relationship and was frustrated. I was like, you know what? Fine, whatever. Ended up being a great opportunity. I got to see the beautiful state of North Carolina, working all kinds of crazy hours, but it was very peaky. Like there'd be a period of time where I didn't have anything to do, and I would just sit in the hotel, hang out, drive around, and then all of a sudden there'd be weeks where I was just slammed, working crazy hours. Good experience in any event. Finished my year, came back to Texas. There were no opportunities to grow into a systems admin or engineer role, which is what I was really hoping to accomplish. I was thinking, oh man, me spending a year out here working so hard, living out of hotels, that the company would appreciate and value that. And as soon as an opportunity for a systems administrator opened up, well, Sean's our guy. He's proven himself. He has been working really hard. That didn't happen. Came back, was put back on the help desk after my year, and that was demoralizing. That was frustrating beyond belief. And I had this victim mentality. Well, why not? Why not me? Why do they hire all these other people and just ignore Sean? I've been working hard. I've been proving myself. It didn't matter. That was the mindset that I had. So I started applying for other jobs, found a job as an IT administrator for a company called GMAC Relocation Services in Houston. That was a pretty good job. I had a good boss. His name was Chris. Funnily enough, just had a conversation with him the other day. He lived up in Chicago at the time, so didn't get a lot of direct in-person guidance, but he was always available. He was a good leader. But the job was pretty boring, if I'm being honest. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff to do. There was one server in the office there, and I supported the users in the office, but pretty boring. So there was a period of time where I started studying. I was going to get some IT certifications, but I wasn't really motivated. I did have to wake up at 4:45 every morning to try to beat traffic, and was spending 3 hours a day commuting, which also kind of sucked. After a few years of doing that, an opportunity came up for me to start working for an oilfield services company. It's called Forum Oilfield Technologies. Well, I started at a company that Forum had acquired at that point in time. And this is where things start to get interesting, because before that, I was pretty much just wandering through life and career. I knew I wanted to accomplish big things, but in my mind, the story I was telling myself was I just hadn't quite had the right opportunity yet. I wanted to climb that corporate ladder, but didn't have the opportunity. Anyways, so started working at TriPoint that had been acquired by Forum as their IT manager. 6 weeks in, one of the servers out in Liberty crashes, dies. And I thought the backups had been running to the Houston location and quickly realized they had not. Now, to be fair, this was a fake it till you make it situation. As I was interviewing for the role, the CEO of that company was showing me around the facility, introducing me to people, opened up the server room and said, hey, here's our computer closet. Can you manage this? There was 14, 15 servers, a couple of routers, switches, firewalls, things like that. And I looked at it. I had never managed anything more than that one server at GMAC before. But I looked at the room, I looked at him, I said, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. I had no clue what to do with any of that stuff. But that's okay. I guess I was convincing enough, or maybe he just liked me and wanted to take a chance on me. So I got hired, then the server dies, almost lost my job, ended up costing a lot of money to get all the data back. It was a whole ordeal. But I definitely learned something in that situation, and that is make sure the backups are running. I know it's easy to just think, oh yeah, everything's fine. Trust, but verify. That is an important skill and probably one of the most important things that I learned at that point in my career. So I started growing, became the infrastructure manager for all of Forum Oilfield, started hiring a few people in my team. Now, the company is going to come across, I'm not sure how it's going to come across, but the company didn't seem to truly value and appreciate the IT function. And I can say that confidently because the team that I had at first, we got moved, we all had our cubes, and then they kept hiring engineers and more engineers and more engineers on the drilling side of things, not IT engineers. And they ran out of space. And so one day my boss shows up and says, hey, we need to move you and your team because we're hiring more people. I was like, well, where are we going to go? It's like, well, we've got this room over here that I think we can get set up for you guys. It was a storage closet. Yeah. Actually, a storage closet. And fun, we had to move everything out of the storage closet so that we can then figure out how to get our 4 desks into this closet. I'll see if I can find a picture and splice it into the video here for all of you to see. It was demoralizing to know that you and your team had been pushed off legitimately into an actual closet. Now, there was also a period of time where I legitimately thought my boss hated me with every fiber of his being. It didn't matter what I did. It was never good enough. It didn't matter how prepared I came for my meetings. It was never good enough. I would get ripped to shreds. Just, man, it's a tough feeling when you are doing everything you can, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and your boss just rips you to shreds. Now, that frustration is compounded when one of your peers, the golden boy, can do no wrong. I would come to meetings with 6, 7, 8 pages of notes and information and reports, and I would go through everything. Well, why don't you have this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Yeah, it crushed me. And then the golden boy, who had no notes, who had nothing other than a blank notepad and would write 1 or 2 comments, would share those 2 comments. Oh my God, you're doing amazing. Thank you. Wow, that's incredible. And then walking out of those meetings, and another one of the managers, who was actually a consultant, would turn to me and be like, man, Sean, what did you do to piss him off? I'm like, man, I'm giving it my all. I'm doing everything I can, and it's not enough. But it didn't stop me. I just kept moving forward. I kept doing what I needed to do. And I had a small team at that point in time, but man, such a good group of guys, hard working, dedicated. We would have fun. Just a really good team. And then a new director of IT got hired. No. You know what? I'm going to back up a little bit. Forum merged with a couple of other companies to create Forum Energy Technologies. And by this point, we had a decently large IT team, and I was responsible for, at that point in time, maybe 100, 120 servers, had a decent sized team. We had 14 different ERP systems that we were supporting and managing. And I was the IT infrastructure manager. One of the companies that we merged with, it was a much smaller company. They had maybe a third of the total employees and systems and infrastructure that we did, but they had a CIO by title. Yeah. So he naturally was put in charge of the entire IT department and just failed miserably. He spent a lot of time talking about his MBA, spent more time talking about his MBA than actually getting anything done. And that was also challenging. In any event, he didn't last very long in the role. They brought in a new IT director from the business side of things, interestingly enough. He ended up being a guide and mentor and someone that I, even to this day, look up to and respect and admire. Just didn't always agree with him, but I respect him immensely. And I can confidently say that he changed the trajectory of my career and life. Coach, guide, mentor. I'm going to have him come on the show at some point in time whenever we can get our schedules to align. But again, working crazy hard, working all sorts of wild hours. But I actually felt some guidance and direction and appreciation from him. Continued on my time. We went through an IPO, great experience, frustrating, challenging. As I say that, all good things. And then stepped out, went over to Nine Energy Service, and most of you know the story from there. I started as their director of IT and then grew into leading HR and safety and transportation and all of those things. Now, I was with Nine for a little over a decade, just grinding away. A lot of work, a lot of frustrations, a lot of challenges to overcome. But as I reflect back on my time at Nine, if I had to summarize all of my experiences, all of the challenges and frustrations and ups and downs and downturns and having to let people go and then hire and just the emotional toll that it took on me, I can distill everything down to one word: opportunity. That is what Nine represented for me. They gave me opportunities to shine, to step up and grow and push myself and challenge myself. And I made mistakes and I paid for those mistakes. But as leaders, that is what we should be focused on. Yes, you need to build a business. Yes, you need to make money, but creating opportunities for upward mobility, that should be our focus. When we do that, when we care about the people on our team, when we care about growing our businesses and our teams, we need to make sure that there's alignment. Find these opportunities and holes in the business and align that with the people on the team and what their goals and aspirations are. And when you can do that as a leader, my God, build the people and let the people build the business. That's it. That's what it really comes down to. And about 6 months ago, I left Nine to start my business full-time, WSS Solutions. And this is one of the ways that I want to positively impact the world. We do executive coaching and leadership development, and then we have a consulting side of things where we consult on people, processes, and technology. So all things related to HR, business process improvement, and then leveraging technology on the back end to really amplify things. That's what we do. Now, I've also had the podcast for about 3 years. 3 years of grinding away, creating this YouTube channel and this podcast to learn. I have been an introvert my entire life. The thought of getting behind a microphone and a camera and becoming vulnerable and putting myself out there was not something that I had any interest in doing at all. At all. This was not going to be part of my journey and my path. Now, what have I learned through all of this? For the first decade of my career, I was just wandering. I knew that I liked technology, but I didn't know what to do with it. I knew that I wanted to climb that corporate ladder, but I didn't know how. And that was a challenge. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of people struggle with. And I feel extremely fortunate and blessed to have had the opportunities and the coaches and guides and mentors that have come into my life that have kind of pointed me down a path. But they've also held me accountable. And that is another very important thing that leaders need to learn how to do. You have to be able to hold your people accountable. Yes, coach, guide, mentor, create opportunities, but hold them accountable as well, consistently across the board. Hard work sucks. It's a grind. Whenever you want to progress in life and your career, you have to do the work. You know, people say that there are no shortcuts, and technically they're right, but you can accelerate things by finding a coach, finding a guide, a mentor. It doesn't have to be somebody that you pay. Find somebody who is doing better than you and figure out how to work with them. If you have to work with them or for them for free, but you learn and you're able to extract knowledge from them, then it is worth it. And I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating beyond belief to think, well, so I have to work for free? Oh my God, with inflation the way it is, this is crazy. You're telling me now I have to go out and work for free? Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've come to realize over the years is all of the hard work that we do does more work on us than we do work on the work. So whenever I look back, all of that hard work that I put in over the years, as frustrating and challenging as it was, the work was building me. I was learning skills. I was learning how to apply knowledge that I was gaining over the years. That's what we need to focus on. And whenever it comes down to building ourselves and growing, we have to be intentional about these things. If you are at a point where you know you're meant for more, you don't know how to get there, start trying different things. Now, don't bounce around a whole lot. Give yourself a fair amount of time to see if you can learn skills, if you can build these skills. It will take time, but it will be worth it. You know, as I think back about the coaches and mentors that I've had in my life, it wasn't until the past few years that I actually started paying a coach to help. And what's so interesting is for the majority of my life, I thought, I don't need a coach. I'll just figure it out. I was being cheap. The story I was telling myself was that I don't need a coach. I will figure it out. I was just being cheap. It's really what it comes down to. And whenever I finally decided to invest in a coach, I interviewed and met with quite a few of them. I needed to make sure that I was going to find somebody that was actually going to provide value. Not just somebody who had a big fancy degree but had never actually built a business or led a team. I needed somebody that actually knew what they were doing and knew how to build more leaders and knew how to build businesses. That's what you have to look out for. And when you take the time to invest in a coach and building yourself, that investment pays off tenfold or more down the road because they are accelerating the time at which you can attain and learn how to apply that knowledge. You know, I'm thinking back about how many years I wasted just grinding away. And I'm not going to say that I regret it because I don't, because I learned along the way. But the biggest revelation that I have come up with now has been how important it is to build and develop yourself. Whether you are reading books, whether you are watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts, don't wander through your life. You might enjoy technology, but try to figure out how to keep moving forward. Figure out what that goal is. And then once you know what that goal is, do the work. And it's not just banging away on a keyboard. Sometimes the work is branching out of your comfort zone. Sometimes the work for an IT professional is stepping over into HR to learn how to understand people. Be intentional about the life that you want to build. And then do the work. That's really what it comes down to. Grind away. Surround yourself with good people that are going to inspire and motivate you. Don't hang out with the naysayers. If you hear those people, oh, must be nice. Oh, Sean's making all this money. All they're doing is trying to drag you down. Like crabs in a bucket. Once somebody starts to claw their way out, the other crabs pull them back down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is all I have for this episode. You know, whenever it comes down to it, as we're progressing through the seasons of our life, don't be afraid to put in the work, but make sure that you're doing the right type of work that is going to get you to the end result that you are looking for. Y'all have a good one.